Hey guys, tonight we are stepping into the thin, cold air of the Andes Mountains, where a simple green leaf became the center of empires, wars, and a global addiction that still grips us today. You're about to follow cocaine from sacred ritual to Wall Street bathroom stall. And honestly, you probably won't survive this without falling asleep, which is exactly the point. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing who's awake at 3 in the morning halfway across the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a terraced mountainside in the Yungas, the eastern foothills of the Andes. Maybe 8,000 years ago. The air is thin up here. Each breath feels incomplete, your lungs working overtime just to exist. The sun beats down with a particular cruelty that only high-altitude sun can manage, and your muscles ache from climbing these impossible stone steps that ancient hands carved into the mountain. But in your cheek, tucked between gum and teeth, is a small wad of leaves, bright green, slightly bitter, mixed with a pinch of ash that helps release something the locals call the leaf's gift. Within minutes, the altitude sickness that was making your head pound begins to fade. The exhaustion dulls. Your breath comes easier. Or at least it feels that way. This is coca, and for the people living in this vertical world, it's more than a plant. It's a compact with the mountain itself, a way to survive where survival shouldn't be possible. The Inca, centuries later, will formalize this relationship into something approaching religious doctrine. They'll call the plant Mamacoca, a feminine deity, a gift from Inti, the sun god, to ease the suffering of his children laboring in this unforgiving landscape. But here's the thing about divine gifts in hierarchical empires. They're never really free, and they're definitely not for everyone. The Inca state, that marvel of bureaucratic control stretching thousands of miles along the spine of South America, treats coca like liquid gold. The Sapa Inca himself, the emperor god, controls its distribution with the jealousy of a monopolist. High priests chew it before casting divinations, reading the patterns of discarded leaves like tea leaves, deciding matters of war and harvest and human sacrifice. The Chasqui runners, those legendary messengers who can carry news from Quito to Cusco in under a week, run on coca and little else, sprinting through mountain passes that would kill an ordinary person, their cheeks bulging with the sacred leaf, and the millions of workers conscripted for the Mita, the mandatory labor service that builds the empire's roads and fortresses and temples, receive their daily ration not as a kindness but as fuel, a way to work longer, eat less, and complain never. Then, in 1532, everything changes. The Spanish arrive with their steel and their diseases and their bone-deep conviction that they're saving souls. The Catholic priests who accompany the conquistadors take one look at coca-chewing rituals and see only idolatry, the devil's work, a barrier to conversion. Early colonial decrees attempt to ban it entirely, and historians still argue whether this revealed simple pragmatism or bottomless cynicism. those moral objections evaporate the moment the Spanish discover Potosi. At 13,000 feet, inside a mountain that seems to be made of pure silver, they find the wealth that will fund an empire. But extracting that silver requires labor, endless disposable labor, and the conditions in those tunnels are nothing short of hellish. Men die from cave-ins, from mercury poisoning used in the refining process, from sheer exhaustion in the thin, toxic air. The Spanish, ever practical, realize what the Inca knew all along. Coca makes men work beyond human limits. It suppresses hunger, dulls pain, fights altitude sickness. It allows mine owners to feed their workers less and extract more silver with lower overhead. Suddenly, the priests who'd called coca satanic are now running their own coca plantations. The leaf that was once a divine privilege becomes a wage, a tool of colonial extraction, the lubricant in a machine that funnels Andean wealth into Spanish coffers for 300 years. The sacred becomes the profane. A gift from the sun god is now just another commodity, another way to squeeze profit from conquered land and broken bodies. For centuries, coca remains locked in its mountain home. Its true power, the alkaloid hidden in those green cells, waiting for a different kind of mind to unlock it. That mind won't belong to a priest or a conquistador. It'll belong to a chemist in a quiet German university town, hunched over glassware, methodically isolating compounds. The leaf's journey from the Andes to the world is about to accelerate in ways the Inca could never have imagined, and the consequences will dwarf even Potosi's blood-soaked silver mines. The 19th century is a fever dream of scientific discovery, and European chemists are obsessed with taking the natural world apart, molecule by molecule. They've already isolated morphine from opium poppies, quinine from cinchona bark, caffeine from coffee beans. These nitrogen-containing compounds, called alkaloids, that seem to hold concentrated power from the plants that produce them. When dried bales of coca leaves start arriving in European ports, carried by merchants and botanists returning from South America, the race is on to find out what makes this Andean leaf so special. In 1855, a German chemist named Friedrich Edke manages to extract a crude, yellowish substance he calls erythroxylon. But the process is messy, the yield impure, and nobody pays much attention. The real breakthrough comes 5 years later in Göttingen. You're Albert Niemann, a graduate student working under the famous chemist Friedrich Wöhler, and you've spent months refining Gedke's process. You use meticulous chemical washes, distillations, a delicate dance of solvents and temperatures. Finally, you're holding pure crystals in your hand, white, odorless, bitter. You do what any self-respecting 19th century chemist would do. You taste it. You place a few crystals on your tongue, and within moments, something strange happens. Your tongue goes numb, a temporary deadening sensation that's almost eerie. You document this carefully in your dissertation and give the substance a proper scientific name derived from the plant and the standard alkaloid suffix, cocaine. The world doesn't immediately notice. Your discovery languishes in academic journals, a footnote in chemistry's grand march forward. But you've just opened Pandora's box. though you'll never live long enough to see what flies out. The reintroduction of cocaine to the world doesn't come through science. It comes through marketing genius and a glass of wine. Angelo Mariani, a Corsican entrepreneur in Paris, understands something fundamental about the exhausted, anxious European public of the 1860s. They're desperate for vitality, for energy, for something to combat the grinding fatigue of modern life. In 1863, Mariani begins importing tons of high-quality Peruvian coca leaves and steeping them in fine Bordeaux wine. The alcohol extracts the cocaine from the leaves, creating a potent, surprisingly pleasant elixir he calls Vin Mariani. It's an immediate sensation, and Mariani proves himself perhaps the first modern marketing genius. He solicits testimonials from everyone who matters. Pope Leo XIII awards him a Vatican gold medal. Queen Victoria drinks it regularly. Thomas Edison credits it with fueling his marathon invention sessions. And Ulysses S. Grant sips it while writing his memoirs and battling throat cancer. Writers from Émile Zola to Jules Verne pen glowing endorsements. Mariani's advertisements are everywhere, proclaiming his coca wine as the ultimate cure for fatigue, depression, and malaise. It's the perfect tonic for the frantic energy of the Belle Epoque. And the logistics are staggering. A global supply chain stretching from Andean foothills to Parisian factories, shipping millions of cocaine-laced bottles to a waiting, thirsty world. America, naturally, decides it can do this better. In Atlanta, a pharmacist named John Stith Pemberton is wrestling with morphine addiction, a common affliction among Civil War veterans. Inspired by Mariani's success, he creates Pemberton's French wine coca, essentially an American knockoff, and it sells immediately. But in 1886, Fulton County enacts prohibition. Alcohol is suddenly illegal. Undeterred, Pemberton scrambles to reformulate. He replaces the wine base with sugary syrup and carbonated water, adds an extract from caffeine-rich cola nuts for extra kick, and crucially keeps the coca leaf extract. He calls his temperance-friendly creation Coca-Cola, marketed as a cure for headaches, nervousness, and exhaustion. Each glass contains a not insignificant dose of cocaine, a fact the company understandably downplays now, but which was then its central selling point. While entrepreneurs are getting the public high, the medical establishment is catching up, thanks largely to a young, ambitious Viennese neurologist named Sigmund Freud. In 1884, Freud is years away from developing psychoanalysis. He's just a struggling researcher looking for the discovery that will make his name and fortune. He stumbles upon reports of cocaine's effects and begins experimenting on himself with the enthusiasm of a true believer. He's euphoric about his findings. In his seminal paper, Uber Coca, he celebrates the substance in rapturous terms, declaring it a miracle drug that induces exhilaration and lasting euphoria with no ill effects. Most dangerously, he promotes it as a treatment for morphine addiction. He gives it to patients, friends, even his fiancée Martha, to make her strong and give her rosy cheeks. Freud's immense intellectual authority gives cocaine legitimacy. It's no longer just a component in popular tonics. It's a serious therapeutic agent worthy of medical attention. His work inspires a colleague, ophthalmologist Carl Koller to investigate Niemann's original observation about that numbing effect. In brilliant experiments, Koller discovers that a cocaine solution applied to the eye renders it completely insensitive to pain. In 1884, he demonstrates this by performing surgery on a fully conscious patient's eye without any sign of distress. The audience of physicians is stunned. This is the birth of local anesthesia, revolutionizing surgery, particularly in delicate fields like ophthalmology and dentistry. Before cocaine, such procedures required brutal speed or knocking patients unconscious with ether or chloroform. Now surgeons can work carefully on specific body parts while patients remain awake and pain-free. By the final decades of the 19th century, cocaine is everywhere. The American pharmaceutical company Parke-Davis sells it in every conceivable form: powder, cigarettes, hypodermic injection kits, complete with cocaine hydrochloride vials, even their own cocaine-infused soft drink. You can buy cocaine throat lozenges for singers, toothache drops for teething infants. It's celebrated in medical journals, advertised in popular magazines, consumed by millions who believe they're simply taking a sophisticated, scientifically approved remedy for daily stress. The leaf of the Andes has been stripped of its soul, its alkaloid isolated and amplified, its power unleashed upon a world utterly enchanted by its promise and completely unprepared for the price it will demand. The fall from grace is as swift as the ascent was spectacular. Those whispered warnings that physicians had been dismissing as anecdotal suddenly grow into a chorus of alarm. The miracle cure begins revealing its darker nature, and it's not pretty. Doctors start reporting a disturbing pattern among their patients, and all too often among themselves. Users who started taking cocaine for melancholy or fatigue find they simply cannot stop. The euphoria that seemed so reliable begins giving way to paranoia, restlessness, and terrifying hallucinations. One of the most common is the sensation of insects crawling under the skin, a phenomenon that becomes known as cocaine bugs or formication. Yes, that's the actual medical term. And no, the irony isn't lost on anyone. The promise of enhanced performance curdles into compulsive, repetitive behaviors and total collapse of judgment. The wonder drug is creating a new and particularly vicious form of addiction. No case is more damaging to cocaine's reputation than one from Sigmund Freud's own circle. He'd enthusiastically treated his good friend, Dr. Ernst von Fleischl-Marxow, for morphine addiction by prescribing large doses of cocaine. Surely one problem could solve the other, right? The result is catastrophic. Fleischl-Marxow trades one addiction for another, far more destructive one, descending into full-blown cocaine psychosis, ravaged by paranoid delusions and the constant torment of phantom white snakes crawling over his skin. He dies a few years later, a shattered man. The experience horrifies Freud, who quietly ceases his open advocacy for cocaine and rarely speaks of it again, though historians still argue whether this represents genuine remorse or simple career preservation. But the damage is done. The genie Freud helped release is now ravaging lives across Europe and America. The public narrative shifts. driven by sensationalist press eager for a new boogeyman. Where advertisements once praised cocaine's virtues, newspaper headlines now scream about its vices. Stories of high society scandals, promising careers ruined, fortunes squandered on white powder become commonplace. But the moral panic takes its most sinister and enduring form in the United States, where it becomes deliberately entangled with the country's deepest anxieties about race. In the American South, lurid and utterly unsubstantiated stories begin circulating, claiming that cocaine use is rampant among African American laborers. These tales are crafted specifically to stoke white fear. Newspapers print shocking accounts of cocaine-crazed Negroes committing heinous crimes with superhuman strength and cunning. A prominent 1914 New York Times article by Dr. Edward Huntington Williams claims cocaine makes black men better marksmen and temporarily immune to pistol bullets. Southern police forces even begin switching to higher caliber revolvers, citing the need for more stopping power against these supposed drug-fueled threats. This is calculated racial mythology, pure and simple. It transforms the cocaine user from a pitiable, often white middle-class victim of medical fad into a dangerous black criminal predator. The drug is no longer just a personal vice. It's a threat to social order, a catalyst for racial conflict, demanding swift state response. The wheels of federal regulation begin accelerating. An early crucial step is the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, spurred by muckraking journalists exposing fraudulent and dangerous patent medicines. The law doesn't ban substances. It simply mandates accurate labeling. For the first time, companies must list ingredients like alcohol, morphine, and cocaine on packaging. The effect is immediate and shocking. Consumers discover that soothing syrups they give their children are laced with opiates, that favorite pick-me-up tonics are loaded with cocaine. Faced with public outcry and threatened sales losses, many manufacturers quietly reformulate. Around 1903, even before the law passes, the Coca-Cola Company removes the active cocaine alkaloid from its flagship drink, switching to decocainized coca leaf extract to maintain the name and flavor profile. But labeling isn't enough for the growing chorus of reformers, temperance advocates, and race baiters demanding total prohibition. The diplomatic stage provides the final push. The United States, seeking to expand its influence in Asia, wants to help China curb its devastating opium epidemic, to have moral authority leading international anti-drug conventions. America first needs to get its own house in order. The result is the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act of 1914, culmination of 2 decades of rising panic. On paper, the Harrison Act isn't a prohibition law. It's framed as tax legislation to survive constitutional challenges. It requires anyone who imports, manufactures, sells, or distributes cocaine and opiates to register with the federal government, pay special taxes, and use specific order forms. It seems like simple regulation, but enforcement transforms American society. Treasury Department agents interpret the Act's provisions in the most stringent way possible, ruling that prescribing narcotics to addicts to maintain their habit isn't legitimate medical practice. Doctors who continue doing so are harassed, arrested, prosecuted. Many are jailed. The medical profession, intimidated, quickly backs away from treating addiction altogether. The consequences are profound and immediate. The supply of legal cocaine, once available over any pharmacy counter, vanishes overnight. The user, who a decade earlier was seen as a patient or consumer, is now legally redefined as a criminal. The act doesn't stop cocaine use, of course. It merely drives it underground, closing the pharmacy door and the soda fountain window while simultaneously opening a new, darker door, the one leading to back alleys, illicit dealers, and the vast, violent, immensely profitable black market that will define the next century. The era of cocaine as medical miracle is over. Its reign as public enemy and fuel for a century of crime and conflict is just beginning. With the stroke of a pen and the righteous certainty of lawmakers, the crystalline powder is banished from sunlit pharmacy counters and cheerful soda fountains. It doesn't vanish, of course. It simply changes address, finding a home with a different sort of person. Prohibition, you see, rarely eradicates desire. It merely raises the price and curates the guest list. And so cocaine, stripped of medical legitimacy, undergoes a remarkable transformation. It becomes a secret, and secrets, especially expensive ones, are the most coveted status symbols of all. The powder becomes the clandestine handshake of a new elite, a glittering communion for those living ahead of the curve or simply above the law. In the roaring 20s, an age drunk on bathtub gin and giddy with rebellion, cocaine is the perfect accessory. In the hazy, smoke-filled speakeasies of New York, Chicago, and New Orleans, where the frantic energy of the Charleston rattles floorboards, a small discreet vial signals you're truly part of the inner circle. It's festive, modern, outrageously illegal, everything the era celebrates. For the flapper with her bobbed hair and newfound freedoms, it's a way to dance until dawn. For the Wall Street speculator flushed with cash from markets that only ever go up, it's a way to feel as invincible as his portfolio. The substance is whispered about, offered in hushed tones in powder rooms of grand hotels or back seats of rumbling Duesenbergs. It's fuel for the party that's never meant to end, a chemical guarantee that the night and the decade will burn brighter and faster than any that came before. This secret society of indulgence has its Western chapter in a sun-drenched town busy manufacturing the nation's dreams, Hollywood. In the flickering, silent world of early cinema, the pressures are immense. Fortunes are made overnight. An unknown girl from Ohio can become a goddess in months. Her face projected 30 feet high for millions to adore. The studios demand, in human hours, relentless energy, constant, dazzling performance both on and off screen. In this crucible of fame, the little white powder finds a very welcome home. They call it girl or nose candy, whimsical nicknames for a demanding chemical mistress. It's the pick-me-up before long nights shooting under hot Klieg lights, the social lubricant at debauched weekend parties in Laurel Canyon mansions, the silent partner in many a star's meteoric rise and tragic fall. The death of heartthrob Wallace Reed in 1923, officially from morphine addiction acquired after an onset injury, rips the curtain back just enough for the public to glimpse the rot beneath the glamour. It's a scandal that terrifies studio heads, not because of the human cost, but because of the threat to box office receipts. The industry scrambles to police itself with the Hays Code, a new set of moral guidelines. But all it really does is force secrets deeper underground, making them even more tantalizing for those who can afford them. The powder isn't just for hedonists. It also finds a place among thinkers, writers, and artists. For the surrealist painter, it might offer fleeting, jagged vision. For the novelist wrestling with the great American novel, it's a way to keep words flowing, to push past walls of exhaustion and doubt. It's seen as a tool, a cerebral stimulant that can sharpen the mind and peel back layers of reality. This, of course, is a beautiful and dangerous illusion. The creativity it seems to inspire is often just frantic, scattered energy. The profound insights merely circular, self-referential ramblings of brain chemistry gone haywire. But the myth is powerful, wrapping the drug in a cloak of intellectual seriousness, making it a sacrament for the avant-garde. And who supplies this clandestine world? Who connects the Hollywood starlet with the Parisian poet, the criminal underworld? Naturally, the same shrewd, unsentimental businessmen who run bootlegging empires see perfect opportunity for product diversification. Figures like Arnold Rothstein, the New York kingpin who allegedly fixed the 1919 World Series, understand the simple economics of vice. Cocaine is a luxury good, low volume, high margin, and portable. It doesn't require fleets of trucks or cavernous warehouses like illegal liquor. A few well-placed smugglers, a network of discreet dealers, and you can service the wealthiest, most influential corners of society. The supply lines are still rudimentary, often relying on legitimate pharmaceutical supplies diverted from Europe or small opportunistic shipments from South America. But the foundation is being laid. The demand is established. Cocaine has found its new identity as forbidden luxury, a powder separating the daring, the decadent, and the damned from the ordinary world. But while bright young things of the North are discovering illicit thrills, the story is beginning in earnest far to the south under the high, thin sun of the Andes. For centuries, indigenous people of Peru and Bolivia had a relationship with the coca leaf that was anything but decadent. It was survival. They chewed the leaves, mixed with ash or lime to release alkaloids, for energy to work at punishing altitudes, to stave off hunger, for ritual and medicine. The coca leaf was a gift from the gods, woven into the very fabric of their culture, a mild stimulant as common and essential as the potato. The transformation of this sacred leaf into global commodity is a story of chemistry, ambition, and geography. It begins not with cartels, but with quiet entrepreneurial chemists and smugglers who see opportunity to connect ancient agricultural bounty of the Andes with the growing nervous appetite of the world. For a time, the hub of this nascent industry is in Colombia, but the long coastal nation of Chile, in cities like Valparaiso and Santiago, smugglers who'd cut their teeth in other rackets see the potential. One key figure is a Chilean woman operating sophisticated networks in the 1960s. Her organization doesn't just move product, they control production, developing the blueprint for the entire industry. It's grim alchemy, turning green leaf into white powder. First, coca leaves harvested by poor farmers in remote valleys are taken to crude hidden pits in the jungle, soaked in gasoline or kerosene, mashed into pulp, often by men stomping with bare feet. This slurry is mixed with acid and chemicals to extract raw cocaine alkaloids, creating gritty, off-white substance known as pasta base or coca paste. This paste is the crucial intermediate product, far more compact and potent than raw leaves, easier to smuggle across borders. The paste is flown in small rickety planes from Bolivian and Peruvian jungles into northern Chilean deserts. There, in clandestine laboratories, often little more than shacks or hidden basements, the final delicate refinement stage takes place. Chemists use volatile cocktails of ether and acetone to purify coca paste, washing away impurities until only pure, glittering crystals of cocaine hydrochloride remain. It's dangerous, foul-smelling. One mistake, one stray spark, and the entire lab goes up in flames. But the profits are astronomical. A kilo of coca paste bought for a few hundred in Bolivian jungle can be transformed into pure cocaine worth thousands in Santiago and tens of thousands in the United States or Europe. Then history intervenes. In 1973, a military coup led by General Augusto Pinochet overthrows Chile's socialist government. In the brutal crackdown that follows, Pinochet's regime has little tolerance for independent criminal enterprises. Many established traffickers are arrested, executed, or forced to flee. The Chilean connection is severed, but demand for cocaine in the United States and Europe hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's growing exponentially. A vacuum has been created, and nature, especially the nature of black markets, abhors a vacuum. The business of refining coca paste and exporting finished product needs a new home, and it finds one just up the coast in a country with long history of smuggling, weak central government, and a class of ambitious, utterly ruthless young men hungry for wealth and power. That country is Colombia. The entire center of gravity shifts north, setting the stage for an explosion of violence and wealth the world has never seen. The quiet, businesslike smuggling of the Chilean era is about to be replaced by something far more monstrous. The machine is about to be built, and the men building it are from the rough, striving middle classes of cities like Medellin. Men with chips on their shoulders who see cocaine not as social vice, but as historic opportunity, a vehicle for their own violent form of upward mobility. At the center of this new class of narco entrepreneurs is one man whose name becomes synonymous with the drug itself, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Escobar isn't a genius chemist or master logistician, not at first. His genius lies in vision and terrifying lack of restraint. He begins his career in the grimy underworld of Medellin, stealing cars, smuggling cigarettes, running kidnapping for ransom schemes. He's pragmatic, brutal, and possesses an innate understanding of the two levers that move the world, fear and desire. When the cocaine trade begins migrating from Chile, Escobar doesn't just see a chance to participate. He sees a chance to dominate, to industrialize the process. He and his associates form what becomes known as the Medellin cartel, less a rigid hierarchy and more a loose, powerful consortium of traffickers cooperating to maximize profits and protect their business. There are the Ochoa brothers, Jorge Luis, Juan David, and Fabio Jr., who come from a family of horse breeders and bring a touch of old world business sense to the enterprise. There's Carlos Leder, a brilliant, eccentric, and volatile German Colombian who idolizes both John Lennon and Adolf Hitler. Leder's great contribution is logistical. He buys a small island in the Bahamas called Norman's Key and transforms it into the ultimate smuggling depot, complete with runway, radar system, and refrigerated warehouses. From this private fiefdom, just a short flight from the Florida coast, the cartel can fly planeload after planeload of cocaine directly into the insatiable American market. What Escobar and his partners do is apply principles of industrial capitalism to criminal enterprise. They vertically integrate, financing coca cultivation in Peru and Bolivia to ensure steady raw material supply. They build vast, sprawling laboratory complexes deep in Colombian jungle known as super labs. These aren't sheds. They're small cities with airplane hangars, dormitories for hundreds of workers, kitchens, power generators, and sophisticated chemical processing equipment. At complexes like Tranquilandia, they can produce 10 to 20 tons of pure cocaine every single week. Tons. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. They're no longer smugglers. They're manufacturers producing product for a global market on an assembly line of breathtaking efficiency. The logistics of moving product are equally audacious. Fleets of small aircraft, each carrying several hundred kilograms, make the journey from Colombia to Norman's Key or drop waterproofed cargo into the ocean for speedboat pickup. They even invest in submarines, crude diesel-powered vessels that can carry a ton or two of cocaine while submerged, making them nearly invisible to law enforcement. And then there's the money. The profits are so vast, they become a logistical problem in their own right. Billions of dollars in cash, mostly small bills from street sales in the United States, have to be brought back to Colombia. It's stuffed into suitcases, packed into private jet landing gear, hidden inside television sets and refrigerators. The cartel spends thousands of dollars monthly just on rubber bands to bundle cash stacks. Pablo Escobar, at his peak, is estimated to be one of the richest men in the world, with a personal fortune in the tens of billions, wealthier than many nations. With this incredible wealth comes incredible power, and Escobar intends to use it to bend the entire nation of Colombia to his will. His business strategy is simple, articulated with chilling clarity. Plata o plomo, silver or lead. For any policeman, judge, politician, or journalist who stands in his way, there's a choice. Accept a bribe, the silver, and look the other way, becoming rich in the process, or refuse and receive the lead, a bullet. It's a campaign of corruption and terror waged on industrial scale. Escobar himself, in breathtaking arrogance, has himself elected as an alternate to Colombian Congress in 1982, seeking legitimacy and legal immunity that comes with office. But when charisma and cash aren't enough, the cartel unleashes the lead with ferocity that plunges Colombia into something resembling civil war. Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, who dares denounce Escobar and strip him of congressional immunity, is gunned down in his car in Bogota in 1984. Luis Carlos Galen, a charismatic presidential candidate who makes fighting the cartels his campaign centerpiece and is the clear frontrunner to win, is assassinated at a public rally in 1989. They place a bomb on Avianca Flight 203 attempting to kill another presidential candidate. He's not on board, but all 107 people on the plane are murdered. They detonate a massive truck bomb outside headquarters of DAS, Colombia's security agency, killing 70 people and wounding hundreds. This isn't crime. This is narco-terrorism. These aren't actions of a mere gang, but of a parallel state, a corporate entity with its own army and foreign policy, waging war against a sovereign nation, while the world's cameras are transfixed by the volcanic, almost theatrical violence of Medellin. A very different organization is quietly consolidating power a few hundred kilometers south in the sun-drenched city of Cali. If Pablo Escobar is a narco warlord, a figure of chaotic public brutality, his rivals in Cali are something more modern and in many ways far more insidious. They're the board of directors of a multinational corporation whose primary product happens to be cocaine. They call themselves Los Caballeros de Cali, the gentlemen of Cali, cultivating this image with meticulous care. Theirs isn't the path of the car bomb and public assassination. Theirs is the path of the quiet bribe, the leveraged politician, the compromised judge. They understand a fundamental truth that Escobar, in his egomania, often forgets. True power isn't the ability to blow up a building, but the ability to ensure no one is ever prosecuted for it. The Cali cartel is a syndicate, a partnership of 4 key figures, each with distinct roles. At the top are brothers Gilberto and Miguel Rodriguez Orihuela. Gilberto, the elder, is known as El Ajedrecista, the chess player, the strategist, the visionary, the public face of their legitimate businesses. He's a man who moves comfortably in the highest circles of Colombian society, a respected banker and philanthropist. His brother Miguel is the nuts and bolts, the CEO managing day-to-day logistics of a global trafficking empire, more private, more ruthless, the iron hand inside Gilberto's velvet glove. Together, they'd built a business empire, beginning innocently enough with a chain of pharmacies, expanding into banking, real estate, even owning the city's beloved football team America de Cali. These aren't just fronts. They're highly profitable, legitimate enterprises, giving the brothers immense social and political capital. And, just as importantly, providing perfect infrastructure for laundering billions of dollars soon to come pouring in. The other 2 partners are specialists. Helmer Herrera, known as Pacho, is the logistics and distribution genius, overseeing complex transportation networks moving cocaine out of Colombia and managing vast distribution cells within the United States, particularly in New York City. The 4th man is Jose Santa Cruz Londono, or Chape, the cartel's ambassador, its pioneer. It was Santa Cruz who in the late 1970s and early 1980s personally went to New York to build foundations of their American operation. He wasn't a gangster kicking down doors. He was a businessman opening accounts, renting warehouses, forging alliances. He understood the American market better than anyone, knew its rhythms, its appetites, its vulnerabilities. The Cali model is built on information and infiltration. They invest more in technology and human intelligence than in foot soldiers. Their counterintelligence capabilities are legendary, rivaling those of a national government. They systematically bribe employees of the Colombian phone company, allowing them to tap nearly every phone call in and out of Cali. They have police officers, military commanders, politicians, and journalists on their payroll. Their spies are everywhere. A lawyer considering taking on a case against them might receive a polite phone call in which the caller details the route his children took to school that morning. No explicit threat is needed. The message is understood. This creates a blanket of silence and complicity, making them seem untouchable. They operate not above the law like Escobar, but from within it, twisting its arms until it serves their purposes. Their logistical innovations are just as sophisticated. While Medellin still relies on stuffing suitcases or using small planes, Cali thinks on industrial scale. They understand that the best way to hide a tree is in a forest. Cocaine is dissolved in chemicals and mixed with legitimate shipments, hidden inside hollowed-out lumber, mixed into coffee bean shipments, secreted within concrete fence posts shipped by container load to construction companies they own in the United States. Unpacking these shipments requires industrial saws and chemical processes far beyond standard customs inspection capabilities. One of their most ingenious methods involves shipping thousands of boxes of frozen broccoli to Miami. Hidden among legitimate produce are boxes where broccoli has been replaced with meticulously crafted green, tinted facsimiles made of pure cocaine. To a curious agent, it's just another pallet of frozen vegetables in a refrigerated warehouse filled with thousands just like it. They professionalize money laundering to an art form. Their financial network spans the globe using a complex web of shell corporations, offshore banks in Panama and the Caribbean, and legitimate businesses to wash their profits until they're indistinguishable from clean money. They hire the best lawyers and accountants to navigate and exploit international financial regulations. At their zenith in the early 1990s, after Escobar's death, the Cali cartel is estimated by the DEA to be responsible for 80% of the world's cocaine supply. They're a quiet, efficient, vertically integrated monopoly, a shadow government whose influence stretches from coca fields of the Andes to the highest corridors of power in Bogota, and whose product is being delivered with corporate precision to a market clamoring for it. And where is all this meticulously packaged, industrially shipped, expertly laundered powder going? It's flowing north in a vast white river to a nation ready to receive it with open arms and open wallets. America in the late 1970s and 1980s is a country in the midst of profound cultural shift. The hangover of Vietnam and cynicism of Watergate are giving way to a new, unapologetic era of ambition, consumerism, and self-gratification. It's the age of Reagan, of greed is good, of Wall Street titans and Hollywood blockbusters. It's an era that worships speed, success, and status, and cocaine, as if designed in a laboratory for this very moment, becomes its perfect fuel. Unlike the drugs of the 1960s counterculture, marijuana and LSD, associated with dropping out and expanding consciousness, cocaine is the drug of the aspirational. It's for winners. It doesn't make you mellow. It makes you sharp. It doesn't make you contemplative. It makes you confident. It promises to make you wittier, more energetic, more creative, more powerful. It's the ultimate accessory for the yuppie, the young urban professional climbing the corporate ladder. It's a line of pure white confidence chopped and snorted in bathroom stalls before major presentations, a dab on the gums before high-stakes negotiations on the frantic trading floors of Wall Street. It's the engine allowing brokers to endure 20-hour days, to scream into phones, to process dizzying amounts of information, and to celebrate massive profits with equally massive binges in exclusive backrooms of Hollywood studios. Multi-million-dollar deals are sealed over glass tabletops dusted with white powder. It's the muse for screenwriters, rocket fuel for rock stars, the secret indulgence of actors and actresses whose perfect smiles grace magazine covers. The drug sheds its back alley stigma and steps into Klieg lights. Nowhere is this transformation more apparent than at Studio 54, the legendary New York nightclub serving as epicenter of 1970s disco-era hedonism. Behind its velvet ropes, a curated world of celebrity, fashion, art, and finance collides in nightly spectacles of excess. And at the center of it all is cocaine, passed around on silver trays like hors d'oeuvres, the club's famous logo. A man in the moon with a silver spoon to his nose is a brazen, winking acknowledgement of the club's drug of choice. Here, cocaine isn't a dirty secret. It's the social lubricant fueling the entire glittering machine, a symbol of being part of the in crowd, of having arrived. The paraphernalia itself becomes status symbol. Gold razor blades for chopping perfect lines, ornate silver spoons for discreet bumps, polished mirrors and marble slabs as serving platters. The rituals of consumption are fetishized, a performance of sophisticated indulgence. This insatiable demand creates a feedback loop of astonishing power. The more cocaine America consumes, the more money flows south. And the more money flows south, the more powerful and sophisticated the Colombian cartels become. The gentlemen of Cali watch this explosion in demand, not with wild eyes of street dealers, but with cool calculation of market analysts. They ramp up production, refine logistics, streamline delivery systems to meet the needs of their best and most profitable customer. The United States is a market of unprecedented scale, and they're sole suppliers of its most fashionable commodity. The profits are beyond comprehension, enough to buy armies, topple governments, reshape entire economies. But the glamour is built on chemistry, and that chemistry is about to be re-engineered. A luxury good, by its very nature, excludes, and the laws of the market, like the laws of chemistry, are relentless. Someone, somewhere, is bound to find a way to make the champagne of drugs affordable for everyone. They do, and in doing so, they unleash a storm that will tear through the very fabric of American society, turning the powder that fueled Wall Street ambition into the rock that devastates inner cities, transforming a symbol of success into a harbinger of societal collapse. and proving once again that cocaine's greatest trick has always been its ability to promise power while delivering only ruin. And so you drift now through the last wisps of this long, winding story. The powder that began as a sacred leaf on a mountainside, that passed through the hands of emperors and chemists, that fueled both surgical breakthroughs and criminal empires, continues its journey still. It flows through invisible channels, across borders, through cities, through lives, always promising, always taking. The machine built to move it grinds on, indifferent to the centuries, indifferent to the cost. But here, now, in this quiet moment, you can let all of that fade. The violence, the ambition, the endless cycle of desire and destruction, it all becomes distant, abstract, like something glimpsed through heavy curtains. Your breathing slows, your thoughts soften and blur at the edges. The story is over, but the night stretches on, gentle and forgiving. If tonight's journey through history resonated with you, or if you found yourself learning something unexpected about this powder's long shadow, consider leaving a like or a comment. It helps others find their way here too. But for now, just rest. Let the darkness be kind. Let sleep come easy. Sweet dreams.